It changes the way we think about life. Let me give you the best example. We've got millennial parents now that are sharing toys on these millennial websites where you go up and you pay a subscription fee one time and you're in the system, then you can get a toy, any kind of toy you want, and by age category, and give it to your child. This is creating the real revolution. The parent traditionally brings home a toy, and they say to the daughter, this is not Christmas. Santa Claus didn't get you this toy. We bought this toy at a store, and we're giving this toy to you. This is your property. This is not your brother's toy, and this is not your sister's toy. This is your toy. You need to take responsibility for it and take care of it. What did mom and dad just say to me? The first thing I caught is this isn't my brother and sister's toy. That's pretty relevant. Now, status, power, negotiability. I'll never let my siblings ever use this unless they pay the price. They're learning possession of property in markets. There's nothing wrong with that. But now on these toy sharing websites, parents are bringing home these toys, and pretty soon they're going to come in a driverless drone at near zero marginal cost. Now the parent's giving this toy and saying, another little child played with this toy, and she had a lot of fun with it, and she really took good care of it because she knew one day you'd want to play with the toy. And we hope you take good care of it because one day another child will want to play with the toy. What the child is learning now is this toy is not a possession. It's not status. It's not power. It's not negotiable. It's simply access to an experience for a moment of time, then another child gets to use it. They're learning how to be part of a circular economy where we distribute things in the sharing economy over and over and over. Nothing goes to the landfill. I like a system where you have both opportunities. There's nothing wrong with being property. There's nothing wrong with having possessions and some status. But it's also nice to have another option where part of our life is being able to access an experience in time and then share it with someone else. I don't think capitalism is going to disappear, but I think it's going to find value by creating a relationship so that it finds value with the child it gave birth to, the sharing economy. And right here in this room, you are already in two economic systems day to day, right here in Brooklyn. Part of the day, you're in the market, you're sellers, you're buyers, you're owners, you're workers. You're producing goods and services for each other for a profit in the marketplace, and you have property. But part of the day, you're in the sharing economy. You're sharing virtual goods, entertainment, news, social blogs, Wikipedia, and now energy and car sharing. And while it has capitalist parts to it, it's also a sharing economy where you can reduce the cost. And by 2050, we will have two mature systems. Part of the day, capitalist market with a profit margin, producing and selling to each other. Part of the day in the sharing economy, beyond the market, freely producing goods and services for each other. That's already started. That is not going to go away. Your generation is moving from ownership to access, from markets to networks, from consumerism to sustainability, from market capital to social capital. Does this all sound familiar? It's a revolution. None of this is being taught in the schools, by the way. That's why this is really a revolution. And there are three things that I've noticed that give me some guarded hope. There's a basic change going on with you people in this room that's strange to older people. There's a change in the way you define freedom, the way you define power, and the way you define community. And these changes really suggest the real revolution. For my generation and generations before me, freedom was very simple since the Enlightenment. To be free in an Enlightenment perspective is to be an autonomous agent, to be self-sufficient, to be independent, to be not beholden to others, to be an island to oneself so that one can have freedom as exclusivity. For the millennial generation that grew up on the internet, autonomy is death. Being an island to oneself is death. Because for your generation, you ask the question, how can I flourish to the full extent of my possibilities here on the planet? And it's clear that your answer to that is I flourish to the extent that I'm embedded in network after network after network, community after community where I can share my talents. And those talents can benefit the network and come back to benefit myself. I'm free because I have access. And for you, freedom is not exclusivity. It's not being an autonomous agent. It's inclusivity. It's access to others and networks. Do I have this right? This is very alien to our generation. We may have to change all the constitutions in the world. This is a completely different idea about freedom. You have a different sensibility about power, which makes the older generation very nervous. We essentially have believed that power always has to be a pyramid. It goes from the top down. That is power. There's no other way to define power. It's a pyramid, from the one to the many. But young people that grow up on the internet, it's strange because you grew up thinking that power has to do with the networks you're engaged in. For you, power is not vertical, it's lateral. For you, power is being enmeshed in network after network where you benefit each other. Open source. This is so strange to our older generation. We do not have this notion of power. It makes no sense to us, actually, but it makes total sense to you. And finally, I think most importantly, we're seeing a change in the way a younger generation perceives identity to community. I grew up in a post-Westphalian world, the nation state. We were very clear on community. That is, each individual is born to be an autonomous agent, and we're each sovereign. We are each a sovereign to ourselves. And each of us, as a sovereign to ourselves, we compete with other sovereign individuals in the marketplace for scarce resources in a zero-sum game. Our nations represent us because they are sovereigns. And they represent all the millions of individual citizens who are sovereigns against other nations. And each nation then competes with every other nation for scarce resources in the marketplace or the battlefield in a zero-sum game. That's the post-Westphalia nation-state world. Here's my question. Does anyone here believe that we're going to be able to address climate change and bring the human family together and take our responsibility for our fellow creatures in the earth we live in with that worldview? Anybody? What we're beginning to see with millennials, and I don't want to overstretch this, but I'm beginning to sense a shift from geopolitics to biosphere consciousness. Just beginning to see it. Hope it doesn't go away. I don't think it will. The biosphere is that 19 kilometers from the stratosphere to the ocean, where all life and all the chemicals on the planet interact to maintain the ecosystems, the biology of the earth. We're getting 14-year-olds coming home with biosphere consciousness, and so they're becoming the biosphere police. We got young people coming home and saying to their father, "Why are you using so much water here while you're shaving? Can't we turn it off once in a while? We're wasting the water." They're saying to their parents, "Why is the little red light on the TV? We haven't been in that room for 3 weeks." Wasting electricity. They're saying to their parents, "Why are there 2 cars in the driveway? Why can't we at least car share one?" They're saying to their parents. This is the one I'm particularly fond of. And it brings a smile to me. We actually have young people coming home, and at dinner time, they're asking their parents where the hamburger came from on the table. Yes, I'm sure some of you have had this experience. They're saying, "Did that hamburger come from a rainforest? Did they have to destroy the trees for 4 little inches of topsoil, which only gives you 3 years of grazing, so that that cow could become my hamburger?" And when those trees are destroyed for the topsoil to graze the cow for the hamburger, the kids are smart enough to understand, the high school kids, that those trees harbor rare species of plant and animal life that only live in those canopies. They go extinct. And then they connect the dots. If the trees disappear for the soil to graze the cow for the hamburger, those trees are not there to absorb CO2 from industrial emissions. And that means the temperature of the planet goes up. So then a mother cannot feed her children if she's on the farm because she's getting spring floods, summer droughts, and wildfires because of the hamburger. These kids are learning ecological footprint, junior high school, and they're coming home. They're beginning to understand that everything each of us does all day long, and even when we're sleeping, intimately affects some other human being, some other creature, and the planet we live in. This is so alien to the way previous generations grew up. You're beginning to connect the dots and say we live in an indivisible biosphere community. There's no escape. This isn't just academic. Our well-being depends on the well-being of the whole system and all the creatures in it. We have young people who are beginning to extend their empathic concern to the rest of the human family because you're all Skyping on global classrooms. Heck, 1 billion of you are on Facebook. That's the largest fictional family in history. And what's promising to me is that part of this generation is also beginning to empathize with our fellow creatures, not just the polar bears and the penguins on the poles, but all of our fellow creatures. And I got to tell you, my wife and I are into animal rights and animal protection. Our fellow creatures have a right to be here. We do not have a right to end existence for them. This is their planet, as well as our planet. So I think we're beginning to see a shift in the notion of freedom, how we perceive power, our sense of community. We're heading to a biosphere frame. This is all good. Let me be clear on why I've been doing this work. I'm terrified about climate change. I began working on energy issues, it was in 1973, and wrote a book, Entropy on Climate Change, in 1980. I thought we had more time. I did not anticipate the feedback loops. We couldn't even see them until they came, and then each feedback loop creates 10 more on an exponential curve. We just didn't see it. We thought linear. Now we're really scared. I'm going to tell you, we are really, really scared. Because now we're in a runaway exponential curve on the water cycles. We didn't see it. The fortunate thing is we now have a new infrastructure paradigm, a third industrial revolution, that can allow us to move off carbon quickly in 3 decades. We have the technology that allows us to do this because zero marginal cost is the ultimate metric for reducing ecological footprint. If people equipped with little technology are constantly finding new analytics and apps to increase their aggregate efficiency at whatever value chain they're in, it means we're using less of the earth and getting more out of it. In other words, more of the energy or materials gets into the product, less is lost. Then if what we do produce is shared, share the cars, share the homes, share the toys, we're distributing in a circular economy over and over. Nothing needs to go to the landfill. Every resource is always there for us. If we move to the energy internet, there's no reason why everyone on this planet shouldn't be producing their own green electricity right where they are at very low cost in 25 years from now in this exponential curve and sharing across continental energy internets. And if we go to a car-sharing, driverless transport grid, we can eliminate 80% of those vehicles that have taken a big hunk of the earth to put online. This is a plan, and what we've done, a lot of businesses are working with us around the world on this, and we say to people, if you have another plan, step forward and tell us what it might be to address climate change and move the economy. And I always get silence. Because the only other plan is to stay where we are, and that's taking us to an economic crisis and an environmental abyss.